Welcome to Through the Trauma podcast. My name is Amber Larkins, published photographer, storytelling expert, visual artist, entrepreneur, speaker, and coach. This podcast was born from one question: how do I get inspiring stories of triumph out to the people who need to hear them the most? Come with me, enter my world, where lives are getting changed, heroes are getting developed, and greatness is being achieved. Hello, and welcome to another episode of Through the Trauma podcast. I am Amber Larkins, your host, and today I have with me a very special guest, Mr. Sonny Von Cleveland. Now, funny story behind how we met. I reached out to him on TikTok after seeing one of his videos, and I was really inspired. And then learning what he does currently with animals, cats specifically, made me very interested. So I reached out to him. He actually contacted me back, and here we sit getting ready to do this podcast. But he has one of the most inspiring stories and very hard things to talk about, but yet he's sharing the hard things. So, Sonny, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
I have reached out to people on TikTok before, and I usually get nothing back. So I appreciate that.
I get a lot of messages on there, but I try to respond to everybody. I try to respond to many people as possible. I think it's important to not ignore people. I know there's a lot of spam, but it only takes a second to say hi or to respond. Some people have shared some really traumatic stuff with me on TikTok. And so it's important that you check it, right? And look where we're at.
Right. Yeah. Well, I thought when I first saw your story, I was like, something that I feel like is not talked about, and it's not talked about enough. And it breaks my heart because it's something that, as a childhood trauma, childhood abuse is something that it happens under our nose, and we don't know, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, because these things are happening in the home. But
one in 6 boys, and I think 1 in 4 girls.
It's just the stats are alarming. But I would love for you to kind of get into a little bit of your story. I know this video I saw was hugely inspirational. I'm sure you've made a lot of videos, so you probably don't know exactly which one I'm talking about, but it was hugely inspirational. So I'd love for you to just share with my audience a little bit about your background and your story.
Sure. I'm from a small town in Michigan. Grew up in the sticks with the Amish folks. And about age 5, my uncle started to molest me. And over the course of the next 5 or 6 years, there was more than 5 more men that would jump in on that train. And in my account, there's like a pedophile ring kind of thing that's going on. In Michigan, especially, I think has a really big one. And so I don't know if they were all connected or not, but I was every couple times a week was a thing. And when I was 7 years old, I broke into a church, and it was unrelated, but my brother and I were playing around a Catholic church, and we broke into the basement and we stole some pudding cups and some playing cards, and we were arrested very shortly thereafter and charged with felonies in 1988, which is, I'm showing my age here. It shocked us. I'm 7 years old, and you charge. Looking back at it now, I don't know how you charge a 7-year-old with a felony, but I think it's probably because of my mother's antitheticism. Antitheticism? I don't think that's a word. Antithetical approach to the government. Anyway, I got charged with a felony. When that happened, they put me on probation. And when I got put on probation, all the guys that were abusing me went away. They stopped coming around. And in my young mind, I had found a way to protect myself. I'm like, okay, here we go. If I get into trouble, I get put on probation, they go away. And when I get off probation, they come back. And that's what happened. Every time I would get off probation, they would come back, and the molestation would start again. And so I decided to just keep getting into trouble. It was easier for me to deal with the ass whooping from my mom, and go into the courts and deal with a little bit of molestation than getting it every, a couple times a week. And so by the time I was, 12, 13, 14 years old, I had a lot of felonies. And when I was 15, I got suspended from school for stealing some money from the safe and sent to the county jail. And while I was in the county jail, there were more charges that came up, and the judge said, "You know what? I'm just sick of you, man. I'm bounding you over to adult court, and I'm gonna let the adult court deal with you." And so that judge wasn't even playing with me. That judge said, "All right, I'm gonna make an example of you." And at 16, he sent me to prison. He gave me 24 to 60 months in the Michigan Department of Corrections. And I was sent to Riverside Quarantine, which is in Michigan, they used to split it up between those that are under 21 and those that are over 21. And being that I was 16, I went to Riverside, and I was raped the first week I was there by two men at knife point. They ran into the cell and put knives in my neck, and it was a pretty traumatic experience. And I turned into this kind of savage, violent individual. In that moment, I really didn't know what to do. So I grabbed up a handful of pencils and I ran across the hallway and I started stabbing the guy in the face. And I found in that moment power to protect myself, and said, okay, if I'm going to survive, this is what I'm going to need to do. And then I started getting recruited by the gangs. The gangs saw what I did, but they didn't see what had happened to me. So in their minds, I was this tough ass little white guy that was down to stab somebody. So I quickly got recruited into a gang, and I spent the next 5 years of my life gang banging in prison, full of violence and just going nuts. It became a thing. It was the way I joined in the chaos to protect myself from the chaos. I figured I might as well be a shark than bait. And I had thought that I was just going to end up spending the rest of my life in prison at that point. When you're 16, 5 years can seem like an eternity. When I turned 21, they opened the doors and they let me out. They gave me $75 and 3 condoms and no parole, no probation. There you go. And at that point, I had just been so far lost in the violence and the gang life. I mean, I was so committed to my gang, and it was a Latino gang, and I'm a white guy. But that's how lost into it that I was. They didn't care in prison. They'll use anybody that they can. And here I fell into this, and now I go out to the streets, and I'm thinking, I mean, I don't know anything about life. I don't know how to get a driver's license, how to live my own life, how to get an apartment, nothing. So I just started robbing drug dealers and robbing people and breaking into homes and stealing things. And I just became this terroristic human being that had no conscience, no thought for myself, no caring for anybody else. I ran across the country. I got a couple of women pregnant. And then 20 months later, I was caught for all these shenanigans and given 15 more years, or 12 more years for 15 more felonies, and sent back to prison. And, the cycle of destruction continues. Here I go, I'm back into the gang life, and now I have 2 kids that are going to be raised without a father. And in 2008, I found out that my brother was actually sleeping with the mother of my oldest child after he had gotten out. And the level of betrayal just made something snap in me. I had tried to be a better human being, if that makes sense. I wanted to be a more honorable gangster, if that makes sense, because I had a son now, and my oldest son's mother would bring him up to see me all the time, and we would talk every day on the phone, and we had a relationship. But then I find out that you're sleeping with my brother, and now you're pregnant with his kid, and that she's taken my son away, and that they're gonna. And I lost my mind. And after a pretty violent incident, I was taken to segregation and given 60 months in solitary confinement. And so, sitting across the hall from me, I hear this guy, "Hey, white boy, come talk to me." And I cuss him out. I don't want you to talk to me. And after about a week of this, I go down to see SEC, and that's when the security classification committee, these are the people that give you you determine your time in segregation. And that's when they told me you'd be here for a minimum of 60 months and 5 years. Fun. So we go back up. He calls over again, and I decide to talk to him. Like, what? What do you want to talk about? And he said, why are you so angry? So what the hell kind of question is that, man? So I'm in prison. My life sucks. You won't shut up. There's a lot of reasons why I'm angry. And he says, no. That's why you're mad. Mad is a surface emotion. Anger is much deeper. You are an angry young man. And I didn't have any response for that. And it took a couple hours, but I finally came back to the door and I called him and I said, you know what do I have to lose by telling this man everything about my life? Maybe it'll help. And so I just dumped all of my pain and trauma on this guy and told him everything about my life. And I thought that, it would get some kind of sympathetic response, but it was like, so, right? Trauma happens to everybody. You gotta imagine that it sucks that you went through that, but it's not, you're not going through it now, right? You're not being a victim at this point. And that's when he sent me over Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, which is what I tout as the greatest piece of literature known to man. And then reading that book just changed my life. Seeing the sentence that stuck out to me the most, there was suffering ceases to be suffering the moment it has a purpose. And to be able to see someone who had such a beautiful life have it turned upside down by hateful people and still be this source of positivity and inspiration, to me, it just spoke volumes and told me what I could do with my life and what's capable and what's possible. And I dove into it. And then my mentor taught me about kindness and compassion and love and forgiveness of myself and forgiveness of others and how to walk a better path. And I dove fully into it. And I went through a metamorphosis to change my life. And I was released from prison 8 years ago, and I've been on a mission ever since to try to help heal people and show people how to heal, because I no longer suffer. And it's actually a very therapeutic process. My wife calls me the accidental Buddhist because nothing sticks to me. Right? It doesn't bother me, right? And I can talk about it like the weather. But that's because I've healed it. And I believe that our voice is our healing mechanism. And the more you speak, the more you heal. It hurts when you first start talking about it, like anything else. If you go to the gym for the first time, it's going to hurt. It sucks, right? Because your body's not used to it. But the more you lift the weights, the easier it gets. It doesn't get easier. You get stronger. 25 pounds stays 25 pounds no matter what. You just get stronger and you can lift more. And it's the same with our voice, right? It hurts when you first start talking about it because there's shame and there's guilt and there's embarrassment. And it's hard to say the words. There's pain, there's trauma. But the more that you do it, the more you have that courage and you fight through those tears and you say it. It gets easier to say it. It's just whoever's on the other end that's receiving it becomes different. Otherwise, it's the same process. And that's healing. Right. That's how you heal. And the best part about that is that you inspire whoever else is listening to say, I can do that too. If that person can do it, I can do it. I can talk about my trauma. I can speak my truth and I can heal. And so that's been the goal of my life now. And here we are. Sorry, I just kind of ran off with that.
No, that was awesome. I just sat quietly because I wanted to hear every ounce of everything you had to say, because that's so, I've often told people the importance of sharing stories. I truly believe and see the value in sharing stories, but to hear you put it in that terms is like, that's powerful, because it's so true. It is true. And this is something I ask a lot of guests, which is, do you feel like the good that you're doing now somehow helps heal the process? I had a podcast recording yesterday and we talked about that. Does it help you heal? And I mean, obviously you and I have two totally different stories, but the things that I've gone through in my life, I know by being transparent and open and honest and authentic about those things, it has helped me heal from those things. So I think there's so much power in what you just said, and so much power in our voice and in being able to speak these truths and being able to help other people. There is.
Well, I think that speaks to the power of the subconscious, right? Like when we look at all the successful motivational speakers or the successful people like yourself that have these podcasts that help people on their healing journeys, the one common ubiquitous thing they all have in common is that they all speak about their past, and they own it, and they're authentic about it, and they're transparent about it, and so their past is on display. And yet most people that see it still have a problem saying, you know what, I just need to talk about my stuff and own it. The answer is right there. We are the ones that are doing it. We're telling you, I've endured some stuff, right? You can see, I mean, I've been through a couple of things, so I can relate to pretty much whatever you're going through. And if I can do it, so can you. And it's still, it's an alarming rate of suicide. How many people take their lives every day? How many people are lost in depression and sadness and unmotivated and living a life that they don't want to be in? And it's the saddest thing in the world, because they project that onto everybody around them, right? And one of the most famous quotes in the world for me is, "Mother is the name of God on the lips and hearts of all children," from The Crow. And if you're a mom that is living with trauma or depression or sadness, your children are going to absorb that. No matter what you say, they're going to absorb it, because children, they listen and learn with their eyes. They don't, not with their ears, right? And they absorb. So you can speak all the rules and be goods that you want, but if you're a sad and depressed person on the inside, you're going to infect everybody that's around you. And as human beings, we're all vibrational creatures, right? So those vibrations, they infest us, right? And that's why when you walk into a room, and if you don't believe me, try it. Next time you walk into a room, just burst the door open with a big ass smile and stand there for 5 seconds. Just burst open and go. Watch what happens. The whole room will light up, right? Because it's infectious. And it's the same thing. If you have the courage, kick the doors open and just stand there mad and watch what happens. You will infect an entire room, because we're all vibrational.
That's so true. It's so true. Even going back to, like, I've often thought this about the gym. I've come out of the fitness industry, and I know from, I can work out at home. It's not the same as the energy or the vibration that's in a gym. I get a much better workout in a gym. It's a small thing, but it's like, it doesn't matter. You can apply this to any area of life.
No doubt. How many of us have gyms in our house that we don't use? I'm guilty of the same thing. I have that and a gym membership. It's like, why did I buy all the gym equipment in the house? Go to the gym.
Yeah, but it's so true. And you know, I'm curious, like, going back just a little bit to that pivotal point in your journey, to where you had read this book, you had this. It was like, was it an aha moment, or was it like an epiphany moment that you had?
I mean, it was more of it was a marathon, right? It wasn't this transitional moment where it was like, oop, now everything's okay. You know what I mean? There was an aha moment when I read about Viktor Frankl and what this man had done to the world. I compared myself to it, which I'm also big on not comparing, right? Don't compare yourself to other people, right? One of the things I hear the most about once people hear my story, it's like, well, I haven't been anything like what you've been through, and that's not true. Trauma is trauma, right? Just because I experienced it in a more hostile location that has a bleaker reputation doesn't mean that the trauma that the little girl is subjected to in the backwoods of Texas and with some creepy ass uncle in the back, that's just as traumatic, right? Like it's not any different. Like, you have the same level of trauma. So to get away from the comparisons, but to see Viktor Frankl's life, this man was, he was a successful businessman, had a beautiful family, and Nazis kicked open his door one day and take him and his entire family to Auschwitz and to a concentration camp. And he systematically watches people be destroyed and eradicated and experimented on and executed. His friends, his family, people that he knows. And the whole time, he is a beacon of hope for people. He's famously said in his book that when we can no longer control our physical environment, we are challenged to control this. And this is where the power lies, right? They can take us away. They can lock us up. They can handcuff us. They can chain us, but they can't take away our ability to think. You can't penetrate this. Nobody can penetrate this. And I compared my life to it. Like, okay, I was this innocent boy that was abused and victimized by all these men, and I turned it around and used it as an excuse to victimize other people. Right? I caused a lot of pain and a lot of trauma to other people, and it was such just an overwhelming shame and guilt, right? Like it infects, it just takes over you, and it's sleepless nights, it's screaming nightmares, it's cold sweats, it's depression, but there's nothing you can do. I'm stuck in this little box. I can't go anywhere. And so you're forced to face that demon. And it's like, okay, I can either succumb to it or I can sit here and face it down. And what is it going to take to conquer the demon? Because in the back of your mind, in my mind, I'm looking at, there's 5 years in this hole. You're not going anywhere. So am I going to just stay in this sadness and this torturous? And this is where suicide comes into play, and suicidal thoughts, right? Because you're like, there's no end in sight here, right? Like this pain and this emotional trauma that I'm dealing with is just too much, right? Like it literally hurts to breathe on a daily basis. Like, I don't want to keep going through this. And what's the options? And you sit down and you start thinking the options. Like I can off myself, but that's not an option. Like, I want to live. I don't want to die. Who wants that, right? That's not. And some people see that as an escape from the pain, not realizing that on the other side of that pain is the best life you can imagine. All you have to do is fight through it. And if you can stand up, you can fight. If you can breathe, you can fight. If you can move, you can fight. The only way we lose is when we quit. And so I started to read more books and more books and more books. And I mean, some of them really had a traumatic effect on me, like the L Factor. I mean, I talk about it in my book that I wrote about my life. The L Factor is a book that helps you define your personality and how to be more likable. It's the likability factor. And so I went through this book, and at the end of it, I was like, dude, this book sucks, right? Like, I have now determined that I am not a likable person. Like, I don't deserve friends. I don't deserve a happy life. I suck as a human being. And it mentally regressed me. And then through, Mallory's help, it's like, I can come back and redefine my personality. I don't have to be that guy. It's not about the guy that I've been. It's about who I can be. You can turn around and change who you are at the drop of a hat, right? There's no rule book that says you can't. People get stuck into this belief system. Well, I've been this way my whole life. This is who I am. No, that's who you choose to be. You can choose to be somebody else at any moment. And you'll hear about the biggest problem is fear. And that's the fear of other people's opinion, right? If I like basketball, chocolate milk, and wearing tight ass jeans and wife beaters my whole life, and then decide one day that I want to come out and I want to listen to classical music, wear suits, and eat tofu, the biggest thing that's going to stop me is everybody else saying, well, that's fake. You're fake as hell. You can't do that. You can't be that. That's not who you are, right? And so we have that misconception that I have to be the same person that I've always been because that's who I am. You don't have to be that. You can change at any moment. And it's the same thing for those of us that were not very good people, right? There are some things that are beyond reparation in my mind, and that's, pedophiles and murder and rape. I think these things are eternal stains. But other than that, like, you can turn it around. Like, yeah, I've hurt people in the past, but should I continue to be that guy? Or should I turn my life around, try to make amends for it, and be a better person in this world, and try to be the best human being I can be? Which would you prefer? And that's the crazy part, is you get so many people that are like, oh, he can't change. So you want me to stay that guy, right? That's who you want me to be.
Probably because it makes them
otherwise you would encourage me to change, and you would encourage somebody to live a better life, right? And I've just come to find that there's so many benefits to kindness and compassion and love to the world, but also to yourself, right? Like, you can live the life of your dreams just by being forgiving to yourself and being kind and being I mean, kindness is everything, right?
Mm.
If you doubt anything in this lifetime, just be nice. Watch what it does in your life. Be nice to everybody and watch what happens.
Yeah, it's going back to that frequency, just creating that frequency all around you.
No doubt.
So this is, I mean, quite a mindset shift that you had. Do you believe that because, you know, a lot of people when they've gone through traumatic situations, they will gravitate to these band-aids, to things that help them stuff it. So whether that's alcohol or drugs or sex or money, overspending or overeating, do you believe that because do you believe you didn't gravitate to those things because you were in prison and you couldn't? Or do you think that, had you been out, do you think you would have never found this kind of literature and this kind of epiphany moment and this kind of transformation?
I mean, I can't say whether I would have or would not have because the literature exists out here as well, right? And I mean, there's so many wonderful organizations and institutions that provide that same type of mentorship on that same level, and prison has everything, right? So drugs, alcohol, sex, it's all there. It's just on more of a macro level, and it's much harder to achieve, and it's much more costly. But there's drug overdoses every day. Right? There are people that turn to those problem solvers on a daily basis in there, and I do think that my experience was a perfect storm. Being in the place I was with the person I was at the time that I was, I think that was definitely conducive to the way that I recovered. But it's not about the process; it's about the result, right? And so for me, one of the things that I learned from that was, yes, I was stuck in a hole, and the circumstances assisted in my mindset, but it doesn't have to, right? You can do this anywhere. And so if someone just sits down and listens to the process, that you don't have to go through that process. You don't have to be in that space and that time with that person to do it. The fact is I could do it. And if I can do it, you can do it. I don't have any special powers that you don't have. I have the same genetic makeup you do. We're the same thing. We bleed the same, eat the same, sleep the same. And I just showed you that it can be done, which means you can do it too. It's not easy. It wasn't easy for me, right? And I had, the time and space to bleed it out and go through it. And so, no, it's not easy, but it's possible. And so it's up to you to take stock of your life and determine, I'm unhappy and there's this emotional block that I cannot get through. I cannot get past, that needs to be resolved. And then determine what you're willing to do. What are you willing to give up for the life that you want? Because your new life will cost you your old one, right?
Yeah.
And that goes for anybody, right? That goes anybody that wants a new life. You can kiss the old one goodbye, right? And it's whether it's a matter of perspective. I just recently did a speech on hope, and I on the fly came up with this new acronym for hope for me, and it's how our perception evolves. And for me, thinking about that, like, how does our perception evolve, right? And that's, we get to choose and dictate the way that our perception evolves, how we perceive things. We get to choose that. When someone comes up to you in a grocery store and the attitude is like, this is a moment of perceptionary evolution. I get to choose, is this person mad at me, angry because of something that I've done, and he is projecting his anger on me? Or did that man just lose his wife of 50 years and he is having the worst day known to man, and I just did something, or he thought I did something that offended him, and he was releasing that anger, and I now have a choice on how to respond to that. I can either choose in kind to come back and meet that anger with anger, or I can accept it lovingly and say, you know what, it's okay. You probably are just going through something bad. That's how our perception evolves. I get to choose that. And if I choose to take that kinder role, the next time it'll be easier for me to do as well. And here I'm going through this evolutionary metamorphosis of kindness. And next thing you know, I'm kind to everybody, and it doesn't bother me what you do. You might come at me all kinds of sideways and angry and throwing a fit. And you see it a lot, especially on TikTok. You see a lot of videos where these people are just losing their minds and the other person is calm as day. And therein lies the key to serenity and peace and happiness and success in a beautiful life. Control is the mark of a disciplined mind. And it's amazing.
Yeah, that's so awesome. So I know that you have a time constraint. So before
I do.
run out of time, although I'd love to keep talking with you about mindset, because you have so many amazing things, and just your perception of the way you think of things it's different a little bit than even like a lot of the self-help and stuff. So I feel like it's a whole new perception.
It is very different. But it's really raw too, right?
It
And
is.
it's unfortunately a lot of people don't like to hear it because it's a mirror and it's going to hold up. And at the end of it, you're going to say, oh, shit, he's right.
Well, the people that don't want to hear it don't really want to grow, because if you have a growth mindset, you want to hear that. Like, I could talk to you all day long because I have this growth mindset where I want to be the best me I can be. So talking to you is like super enlightening. But I do want to talk a little bit about what you do, because this was the video that I actually messaged you from when I saw that you run this. It's a cat cafe.
Indeed.
So
Yeah. So my wife and I, we own the first and only cat cafe in the Coachella Valley. And it's something that's really, it's really inspiring for me, right? Like, it's not my passion in life. My wife and I would talk about this quite a bit. The cat cafe is not my passion. I had no idea what the hell it was. But when my wife and I moved together out to Palm Springs, California, she had the idea to start this business. She had been to a cat cafe in South Carolina. She used to be an international keynote speaker. She traveled the world, and she was on a speaking gig there in South Carolina. She came across cat cafe. And so here we are trying to figure out, how are we going to build a business and what are we going to do? And she said she wants a cat cafe. I said, what the hell is that? She said, it's a coffee shop that has cats in it. I don't know the first thing about coffee or cats. I like coffee. I drink the hell out of coffee, but I don't know much about it. And so I support the endeavor, and I'm always like, okay, take a shot, take a chance. Why not? This is something that's very passionate to her. My wife has been in love with cats for a very long time. Every picture that she's ever shown me, going back, she's been to 72 countries, and every country she travels to, there's cats, and she's always with these cats. So and then she breaks the concept down. It's where we partner with a local shelter, and we take the cats out of the cages and we put them into this nice, beautiful living room setting, and we keep them there until they get adopted, right? And so it's a coffee shop. It's just a normal coffee shop, and then it has this lounge that people come in, and we charge by the hour that for people to come in and sit down. And a lot of people are, I don't know why I got to pay to pet your cats. You don't. Actually, you can just go somewhere else, or you can go play with your own cats, or you can go up the road to the shelter, and I'm sure they got a cat or two up there you can tickle. But this environment it's a therapeutic environment. We've got people that come in and have foregone their therapist to come here. It's much cheaper than a therapist. And there's just something magical, and for me, very personal, about taking cats out of cages. These cats that people gave up on, nobody wanted, they were abused and thrown into a cage. I can relate. And we pull them out and put them in this beautiful, wonderful environment. We just shower them with love and kindness and treats. And we accept them. We meet them where they're at. Some of them, cats are fascinatingly emotional creatures. And we meet them where they're at, right? And we work with them to rehabilitate them. And that social interaction from people that come in, and we have a very strict standard for the way that people interact and socialize with our cats, right? Like we don't tolerate any craziness. So some cats need to be left alone. Some cats need attention and love. Some cats need, these little liquid churros that they're like cat crack, and it works for all of them, right? And I mean, we've had some we've done 116 adoptions since we opened a little over a year ago. And we've seen some amazing transformation in cats, and it's incredible.
That is such an amazing story. I mean, wow. That's amazing. And from someone, my mom does dog rescue. I was telling you before we jumped on here, and
Yeah.
I'm like telling her when I heard your story, I'm like, what an amazing idea. I'm like, you need to do this because
Yeah. Yeah.
there is something very therapeutic about animals and connection with animals.
Sure.
They are some of the most loyal. Like animals are sometimes even more loyal than people.
Well, they're always more loyal than people.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
People have these wonderful, wonderful intricacies that are just based off of ego, and I think animals don't have that. I think animals lack ego. They have pride, to be sure, because they're emotional creatures, but they don't have ego, right? And so I can call my cat ugly, and he's not going to think any different of me. He might look like he's going to, but that's just me projecting.
mhm.
My dog she's my fourth most favorite creature on the planet. And, I can call her whatever I want. As long as I feed her and pet her and love her, she's going to forgive me and come back no matter what. It's not quite the same with my life. If I could feed her, pet her, and love her, but there's still other things that she would leave me for. Dog's not going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and what a beautiful symbolic thing of like, you said these cats that are thrown away. And you can relate to that. And I feel like so many people probably feel that internally, whether they voice it or not, they probably do feel that. Like I've been thrown away, or I'm not important enough, or I'm not enough. That's a big
Yeah.
problem that people have. And I think, man, what you and your wife are doing is it's a beautiful thing. And
Well, we're looking to franchise, so hopefully we can talk and get one in your area. It would be
oh
awesome. We
man,
definitely want to expand out and do multiple cat cafes because so many cats that need saving, but as a secondary effect, there's so many humans that need saving too, and it's a beautiful thing.
hmm yeah, for sure. I mean, what an amazing story that you have, and yours is. There's always beauty in the triumph. There's always beauty in transformation. Somebody that is like been through the worst and picked themselves up and brought themselves to a place of triumph. That's beautiful. But yours is one of the most impactful, I feel like, that I've heard. I mean, all of them are impactful, but the level of transformation that you've experienced, and then what you're doing, like your heart behind what you do, which is helping people, and then now even helping animals, which is, I'm an animal lover, so that I think I instantly felt a connection with what you're doing there, with the cats.
It's what it's about, right? It's about using our past experiences to help people learn from the mistakes that we've made. And for me, it's important that my story is told authentically and in its entirety. From coming from TikTok, my TikTok started to blow up because there was a page on there called Sadcore Sessions, and they had shared a video on their page of a video I did with a group called Jubilee, and this video started to go viral on Sadcore's channel, right? Like nothing else on their channel had much momentum. This one got up to 6 million views, and on TikTok, which was huge. And then my TikTok starts growing. I mean, I've had my TikTok for years, but I suck at TikTok. I'm not good at it. And so it slowly grows, but all of a sudden it's growing and my numbers are going good. And then I look at this video and you didn't tell my story authentically. And so I contacted them and said, I need you to take that video down. Right. And they're like, first of all, I didn't give you permission to do it. But you don't need that. As long as you do it in a capacity that's going to help, I'm okay with that. You didn't do that. You put the story up, and now other people are making videos based off of that video. And that video shows a little boy who was abused, who went to prison, who became violent, who got out and fixed himself. That's not how it happened. I had a mentor. And for me, that is for what that man did for me in my life, you get that. And as much as I can, I'm going to catch as many videos as I can to catch. That is how I changed my life. I had a mentor. I had someone that showed me a crumb of kindness and compassion and care and love, and showed me that in that moment. And for me, that's why it's so important to be kind, and it's so important to be caring and loving and forgiving, because that mentorship changed my life. If it wasn't for that,
was the mentor the man that first called you over? Is that who you're referring to as the mentor?
Yeah, that's why my book's called Hey White Boy, because that's the first thing he said to me. My book is called Hey White Boy, Conversations of Redemption. And that's what he always said to me. So it was a little annoying. We weren't friends, but it became a very teacher-student relationship, mentor-mentee, and he saved my life. And so for me, I don't care if the video has 6 million views and we're going viral and you get all this attention. I don't care about that, because what's important to me is that somebody sees it and knows that they can change their life. And it's important to know that a mentor came in and did that, because a lot of people don't trust other people. And so people won't open up to somebody else, and they're not even open to mentorship because they're like, no, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. I opened up to a Muslim man who hated white people, and he changed my life. So it shows the symbiotic relationship of humanism, right? Like, you can be part of something that can change your life regardless of what the other person looks like, or the preconceived notions that you have going in. Just because that person doesn't like people like you doesn't mean you're not going to impact that person's life or change that person's mind, because that's what happened to me, right?
Well, and you don't know the impact that you had on this man's life too. That's the beautiful thing. Like, you can learn so much by teaching as well. So him teaching you or mentoring you, he probably gained just as much, maybe even more than what you gained. You just never know.
You never know. Yeah, I know. He might not have had any clue on the impact that he was about to have in my life, right? And it could have changed his. He might be in there now like, I'm just a full-on mentor now. I'm just helping people left and right.
He's a life coach.
Right. He's an incarcerated life coach. Why not? They need that in there big time.
They need it. Well, I know your time is wearing thin, so I don't want to keep you past your time. But if you had like a final takeaway or something that you could really leave my audience with, what would that be?
You are worthy of the life of your dreams. No matter who you are, no matter where you've been, no matter what you've been through, you have more value than you could ever imagine. The world needs you. You are necessary, and live your life like someone's watching, right? Then someone needs you. You are so worthy. All you have to do is take the choice to go for it, right? Dream big, dream so big it scares the shit out of you, and chase it. Go for it, because you get this one life. This is it. This is your run. And we don't know what happens. It's your shot. Go for it.
I love that. I love it. And your book, is it on Amazon, or where can people find?
Yeah, you can. It's on Amazon. It's in Barnes and Nobles. It's anywhere books are sold. Hey White Boy, Conversations of Redemption. You can go to heywhiteboy.com to learn more if you're interested.
Awesome. And then you also are a speaker and a coach. If someone wanted to get in contact with you, what is the best way to do that?
So, I mean, there's several options. You can go to sonnyvoncleveland.com. That's a great way to find all my other resources and things I do. I also have my own nonprofit organization. It's called the Von Cleveland Foundation. So you can go to tvcfoundation.org. You can just put in the Von Cleveland Foundation, or you can just Google me. Like that to me, that's the best way. You can shoot me an email. I'm a pretty open book. I mean, my phone number is out there to the world. You can call me. You can text me. I try to make myself as accessible as possible for everybody. Follow me on social media. It's going to be Sonny Von Cleveland, no matter where you look. There are some fake accounts out there that are there, but you'll know quickly whether you're talking to me or not, because I'm very active, right? So
Yeah, and very personable. You are very
thanks.
personable, and I hope that you never lose that, because it's the authenticity that just radiates from you. It's a beautiful thing, and I have no doubt in my mind that you are making a huge impact and will continue to do so.
Thank you so much for having me. I think what you're doing is absolutely incredible. You are inspiring people everywhere, but especially young ladies and women, right? Like you, I think there's been such a huge disparaging gap between what women can do and what they can't do, right? And it's pretty crazy in this world, but we need women like you that are out inspiring women. You remind me so much of my friend Cindy Whitteman, and you're powerful women, and keep doing that. Inspire these young ladies to know their worth and know that you can do this. You don't need anything else but you.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And
Of
I
course.
love connecting with other humans that are on the same wavelength, because what you're doing in the lives of men and women, I'm sure that are impacted by your story. But thank you so much for
Of
being here
course.
and sharing with me today, and I just appreciate it so much.
My absolute pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Through the Trauma podcast. If you have found value in this episode or believe in the mission behind what we are doing, please subscribe so that you never miss any future episodes. Also, be sure to check out our transformation project at transformationthroughtraumaproject.com, where we help inspirational stories get heard on a larger scale through multiple platforms. If you know someone who can benefit from this episode, please share it with them. Until next time.